Investment advisory services offered through Independent Solutions Wealth Management and Blackridge Asset Management, LLC. Broker Services, LLC is not an affiliate of Independent Solutions or Financial Guys, LLC.
You're listening to The Financial Guys.
We're $23 trillion in debt, honey. We don't have an extra surplus of money.
Newsflash, guys, stop attacking businesses, because when all the businesses are gone, nobody's going to pay your salary anymore. You get that?
If the goal is to create a loser mentality, you're winning.
I'm going to build a big, beautiful wall with a big, beautiful door. Well, guess what? We have a big, beautiful door, all right. It's the wide open
about 90%.
southern border, right?
Yeah.
Here's Glenn Wiggle and Mike Lomas.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in to the Financial Guys podcast, a place where money meets politics. And if you listened in on Saturday, you know, we had a fantastic interview with Andrew Pollack. He's going to be joining us again here in just a second to talk about his new book, Why Meadow Died, the People and Policies That Created the Parkland Shooter and Endanger America's Students. Before I get to him, however, I want to just mention, if you need anything or you want to find out more about what we do, go to our website, thefinancialguys.com. You can go back and listen to the replay of the interview from this past Saturday, as well as all the other radio shows and different things, podcasts that we do. Again, financialguys.com. Again, I'm Glenn Wiggle here with Mike Lomas, and why don't we jump right to it? So, Andy, thank you again for joining us. We do really appreciate it. And as Mike was saying before we started, you know, probably one of the most impactful and best interviews I feel like we've done in our 20-year career. And we've had some, you know, big people, big name people on, Alan West and Carl Palladino, and, you know, U.S. senators and U.S.
governors
people,
and
but
governors and owners
and
of
whatnot, but
NBA basketball teams to everywhere in between. So, yep.
But your interview was really, I think, very impactful. And thank you again for joining us for a second go around.
Yeah, I was going to say, Andrew, you said that this is one of the most avoidable mass murder in U.S. history, and you know, I'd like to start there. You know, what is the, you know, why do you say that?
Because he was just a screaming red flag from early on. Even in nursery school, he wasn't able to attend nursery school. He was biting and kicking and scratching and, you know, just acting out in nursery where they had to kick him out. And then just reading his records throughout middle school and all the things that he did where he should have been arrested or he should have been committed, and so many failures from the FBI to the sheriff's office to his mental health to his parents to the monitors to the school district. You know, there's just, I could go on and tell you, you wouldn't believe the amount of, sometimes in the book, there's a section where we just write, what if? And that we just went through, I don't know how many are in there, maybe like 50 what ifs. It would have changed the course of my daughter getting murdered. And, you know, it's in this book, and maybe why Meadow Died is going to save lives and educate parents what environment they put their kids in.
Well, I sure hope so. This is an absolute must-read book. If anyone that has kids in school, grandkids, you know, we have to learn from these. I mean, it's unfortunate that, you know, back when they had Columbine, the sad tragedy that was Columbine, they did a full study, months of studying, and they came out with a pretty comprehensive report of what to do as far as perimeters and things like that. And none of it's ever been followed. You know, unfortunately, it seems like the mantra wants to go immediately to gun control. And look, I'm a huge outdoorsman. I'm a Second Amendment fan. I'm a hunter. I'm a fisherman. If I could wave a magic wand and eliminate a type of rifle or pistol or do something that would for sure eliminate a school shooting ever again, I think we would all agree to do that. But we know that's ineffective. And unfortunately, I think when they focus on things like that, they're taking the focus away from, you know, the school safety initiatives that really could make a difference. But unfortunately, we're not talking about those things.
No, like in Texas, even in Texas, there was a shooting in May, right after my daughter was murdered, May 18th. There was a shooting in Texas, and they used a shotgun and a pistol. So, and that's in Beto O'Rourke's home state, and he fails to mention that because that's not part of their agenda. He doesn't, what is it? He doesn't care about the victims in his own state because they were killed with a shotgun. So it just proves my point. And everything that they're pushing for in Congress wouldn't make a difference if they get these bills passed. With most of these mass shootings that I look into, you know, it wouldn't make a difference what they're pushing for.
Andrew, you've really enlightened me to this anti-disciplinary movement and understanding that, some of these kids are getting a pass. And, I'd really like you to maybe focus a little bit on that. I think there's a lot of folks that are going to watch this podcast. I know there's a lot of folks. You were on our radio show down in South Florida this last Saturday and all of Western New York. And I cannot tell you the amount of calls I got from parents that said, I had no clue that we were treating bad kids as such. And I'm hoping you might be able to educate our listeners on what exactly are you talking about, and what did the Obama administration do to sort of make that easier for bad kids to be in the school system, sitting right next to your daughter? And you said this Saturday. You said, yeah, it was my daughter, but it's also your son and your daughter too. And you've been hell-bent on making sure that hopefully not one more parent goes through the mess that you've been going through.
Well, it started with when Obama, actually, the superintendent from Broward, Robert Runcie, he comes from Chicago, and they came up with a plan. They wanted to end the school to prison pipeline and lower suspensions and expulsions on. It was mainly focused on minority children, but what it really does, it affects the whole district. And let's not suspend them, and let's not expel them. And it's a social experiment that they're doing with our kids, and it doesn't work. Robert Runcie came to Broward. Within his first year, he reduced crime and arrests and suspensions by 70%. So
Great.
he doesn't.
Great
He
job.
doesn't reduce it. Oh man, that's my monster here that I.
That's
got.
all right. That's all right.
No worries.
The leash on.
I got one peeking through the window here at me.
Yeah.
So what he does is they don't reduce it. They just pressure the teachers to stop reporting on it. Okay. And it just creates this culture of leniency throughout the whole district. And that's what's going on in the country. And then they used Broward. They said, oh my God, look at this guy. This guy's like the Messiah. He reduced crime by 70%. How did he do it? Let's put that in every school throughout the country. And what happens is when you look at it, because I spoke with law enforcement in Broward. What happens then is felony rates from kids now start to rise from 18 to 25. Okay, in Broward, it skyrocketed once they put these policies into place. Felonies have skyrocketed because now all of a sudden, when kids turn 18 to 25, they've never been held accountable, and then it creates them. It sets them up for failure. That's what it does. So it does the opposite of what they wanted to do, because when you look at it, when kids are juveniles, that's when they're the most vulnerable to be taught. Okay, so if you take a kid, I don't care what color. I don't look at color when I see kids. Any kid that's being disruptive, that's committing some type of crime, if you get them at an earlier age, you could point them in the right direction. You give them a good smack on the wrist and teach them right from wrong at an early age, and then you set them up for success. If you don't do that, then they end up staying in the system forever. And that, I learned that actually. I sat on the transition team for Governor DeSantis, the public safety transition team, where I'm just a civilian, but most of that committee was full of sheriffs, throughout the whole state of Florida. Grady Judd, Wayne Ivey, sheriffs that have been in law enforcement most of their lives. And what they said will always stay. I'll always remember. They said, once they get into the system, most of these kids, they'll stay in the system for life. So when they're juveniles, if you make a program that works, you got a shot at helping them. So these policies set these kids up for failure from the beginning. And a lot of these school districts, they make the police out to be the enemy. Law enforcement is there to help. They don't want to hurt kids. Not one parent or person out there wants to see a kid get a record and be affected forever. But there is a way to use law enforcement, as a mentor to put these kids in the right direction. And these school policies are the total opposite of holding kids accountable. And it affects them. The teachers have to deal with these disruptive kids, okay? The disruptive kids don't learn right from wrong. And then think about your kid that wants to go there and learn that's subjected to this environment. And that's in Broward. It started in Broward. They just passed the law in California. It's illegal to suspend disruptive kids, if you can believe it. They don't learn anything, you know what I mean? And that's what's going on. And parents need to wake up, because that's a platform for the Democratic Party going forward on 2020. They've said it. You can see it on their websites.
What happened to the anti-bullying movement? I mean, there was obviously a lot of posters, and I've got kids that are in school, middle school and high school, and I remember when they were back in grade school, all the anti-bullying and if you see something, say something kind of mentality. Is that now if you see something, sweep it under the rug so you don't scar a kid's record? I mean, that's abusive to other kids.
I could tell you what happened in Broward. Kids saw something. Oh my God.
I love it.
No problem.
But so these policies in Broward, I could tell you what happened. Is the kids said something, saw something, they said something, and the administration did nothing. Okay, because they were following these policies. Their hands were tied. And it's really a perfect storm. So you have those disciplinary problems in the public schools. Then you have the other problem of labeling kids, emotionally disturbed kids. They label them special needs. Okay, we're not talking a kid with dyslexia or autism, not disruptive. We're talking kids that are very emotionally disturbed. They give them a label of special needs, and then that gives them more rights than anybody in the school. So you have those two things that are going on in the schools that parents don't know. Like you got kids that are violent. I'm telling you, there's thousands of them throughout the country, okay? And they're untouchable. And the parents, they're all like, oh, my kid needs the same education as your kid. And it's going on. And I'm not saying you got to take these kids and put them in certain schools, okay, where they could be monitored. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're disruptive and they're violent, but they label them like a kid with a learning disability.
Andrew, you've pointed out level after level of failure here. I mean, it's really amazing, from the FBI to the superintendent to the guard at the front, or that saw I won't mention his name, but saw him walk in with a bag with a gun in it, right? The other part, rifleman. The other part you've talked about, though, is, okay, getting these kids, these kids with disciplinary problems out of the school, but yet we're still not protecting the schools. I mean, the fact that somebody like that could just walk through the front door, and I think I've heard you say this, and it's spot on. Look, we protect our banks, we protect our airports. There's not one member of Congress that would walk through the door without making sure everybody went through some kind of a metal detector. But yet we're still not protecting the schools. We're still not solving the problem of, okay, we've got some nut jobs, which in the case of your daughter was sitting next to somebody who I think had 40 misdemeanors and nobody knows about it. But then on top of that, we're not even protecting the barrier to walk into the damn school. That's scary.
It's a problem, and it's really by the district. Like some districts take it serious, and these districts that have these bureaucrats running, these liberal bureaucrats, which infiltrate school boards, they don't see the need for it. So what we, in Florida, if you're from Florida, Governor Scott at the time put in a commission together to look into all the failures. And one of the things that they passed in that commission is to have personnel to be able to go through training, very intense training, 140 hours of training, to be able to be armed at the school. Because when seconds count, first responders are minutes away. You know what I mean? Minutes away. Yeah. They can't save your kid, and then even if they get there, maybe they don't even go in, like what happened with my daughter. But there's a lot of school districts that are doing that, and that's on the parents. Like, again, send your kid to a school where the teacher or the personnel has the option to volunteer and go to a training program of over 140 hours. The mainstream media wants you to make it out to believe that you're going to go, granny that teaches home ec or a librarian's going to go for the weekend, and then Monday she'll have a gun. It's not how it works that way. It's intense training. Half the people flunk out. It's so hard to do. Yeah. And, and they're a big deterrent at the school. There's schools in Texas that are putting signs, listen, we protect our kids with deadly force, and we're going to shoot back. And those signs are in schools in a lot of schools in Texas and other areas, not just Texas, Georgia, they take it serious. And if I'm a parent, that's what I want. You know what I mean? I know it. And you know, there was 15 commissioners on the MSD commission. 14 out of the 15 voted to be able to have teachers and personnel to take this class. 14 out of 15 of them. After seeing the videos, after watching this killer walk through the building and reload, he reloaded 5 times. No one went into the building for 40 minutes. The guy at the gate, he said, if anyone's listening, they could actually YouTube the interview. It made me sick. It was his name's Medina. He's a piece of garbage. He worked at the gate. He was the monitor. Medina and BSO interview. And after I watched the interview, he was still working at the school at the gate, if you could believe it, this guy. And it's in the book. The next day I went up to the school after watching this interview on YouTube, and I said, you can't have this guy work at the school no more. He's not working here no more. It's just disrespectful to my daughter to have this guy at the gate. And they fired him the next day.
Is there no common sense? I mean, is there just zero common sense when it comes? I mean, that would seem like it would be an obvious, right? I mean, don't show back up. I mean, that's insanity.
Yeah, people don't even know that the killer called Uber. Okay, so Uber's to blame too. I tried to talk with Uber. They didn't want to make a difference. Uber, that company, they flew me. So Uber picks him up with a rifle bag and drives him to the school. I don't tell many people. I went out to Uber in San Francisco. They flew me out. I wanted them to do a video to educate their drivers, you know, so this doesn't happen again. I said, why don't you just do like, you know, when your driver signs on, you guys have the software, you click on, listen, this is a rifle bag. You don't take kids to a school, to a mall, to a church, to a temple with a rifle bag, and make them watch a little few-minute video, your drivers, right? Never heard from Uber again. They flew me out. I went out to San Francisco. I met with their top security people. Nothing. I didn't want anything but to educate their drivers, and they never did anything about it. And there's still kids. This things go all the time. You read about Uber, but with a regular rifle bag, they drove them to the school, and they don't accept any responsibility. Uber.
Unreal.
For what they did. And then the monitors at the gate. He watches them get out of the car with the rifle bag. And all he had to do was say code red and hide the guy. Right. That was his job. He didn't want to be the guy to call the code red and have the cops come.
Yeah, knowing by the way, and he knew that this kid was a nut job. He knew he was a nut job, right?
He recognized in the video, I recognized Crazy Boy. We had a meeting. Yeah, that's what he says to the police. I recognized Crazy Boy in the interview. And he says, I recognize Crazy Boy. We had a meeting about Crazy Boy a year prior that if anyone was going to shoot the school up, it was going to be him. So doesn't call a code red, this guy. What he does, though, he gets on the radio. He calls this other piece of garbage in the school, in the building. His name's Taylor. He calls him. What does he do? He goes and hides in a closet. The guy doesn't want anyone in the building. You know, people don't know about it. I know about it. So he goes, instead of so the killer's on the first floor. He sees him on the first floor. He runs up to the second floor and hides in a closet, the guy. All he had to do was run to the third floor and yell to everybody, or get on his radio and call code red, and my daughter's alive. He saves himself. A grown man hides in a closet.
That's just terrible. That's absolutely ridiculous. You know, in New York, Governor Cuomo, or King Cuomo, just outlawed allowing any sort of training for armed teachers. And the argument that the left likes to use is, well, we can't just go out there. Not all teachers want to be armed. Nobody's saying arm all teachers. But when you look at somebody like the football coach, you know, he was in a position he used his body. He was a hero, you know, to take the bullets to shield his students. You know, I'm sure he would have much rather have had an ability to defend himself and his students that he protected so heroically. Sad.
I don't think they know the meaning of the word volunteer. You know what I mean?
No, I guess not.
I've been through it with these people. I can't, you know, there's people that I went in Tallahassee and passed that bill 3 weeks after my daughter was murdered. I'd had to sit down. This is the first time I had to deal with politicians. And I sat down with them, and it straight out in the bill said that the district doesn't have to participate in it, and the teachers could, and it could be voluntary. And Democrats still voted no for all the good things in the bill. More mental health care, more money for hardening, more software so all the different entities could communicate, the school, with DCF, with the sheriff's department, all this good stuff in the bill. And I had Democrats saying, we can't approve this. It says armed teachers. I go, it doesn't say armed teachers. You know what I mean? It says if the district wants to do it and participate in it, then it's up to the district. But they still voted no on it, and that was my first taste when I started to have to deal with Democrats.
How have you been treated by the mainstream media? I mean, your message is obviously very different than everybody else who really is not looking for answers or solutions. They just want to blame guns. And I really, truly believe this nut job would have come in with a bottle of gasoline or whatever. He would have figured out a way to hurt people, right? He was nuts. He was mentally
He was coming
ill.
there. If you couldn't buy it, I call it a semi-automatic rifle, and there's thousands of them. If he couldn't buy one of those, he would have had a shotgun. He was in the building so long, what they don't get, and no one came to, he could have had a musket and killed 17 people with a black powdered rifle. No one was going in the building that was armed to stop him. Yeah. There was no one there. The guy, the deputy got arrested with felony charges, the deputy that didn't go in. We're doing a lot in Florida that because of Republicans, you know what I mean? We have a Republican governor that really is into holding people accountable. I worked really hard to get Ron DeSantis elected in Florida, and he came through. The first week in office, he removed the sheriff, which was it meant a lot to the families to remove this guy.
Hard to believe, by the way, though, that you had to remove the damn guard. The sheriff wasn't already gone day one.
He's running again?
I mean, he's running again. Yeah, that's unreal.
He's running again. How ignorant must you be? He should be hiding under a rock somewhere. I mean, that's just unbelievable. It really is. It's so frustrating.
I don't like to categorize all Democrats, but the ones in Broward, these leaders, are probably the worst people you could ever deal with in your life. This guy's running again. The supervisor of elections removed. You know what I mean? The same year, you have the supervisor of elections that compromised elections. Then you got a sheriff that's so incompetent that he has to be removed. 2 failed mass shootings on his watch with failed deputies that aren't trained. They don't have training for years, these guys. He politicized his whole department. He gets removed. The school board, there's a grand jury investigation into the school board. It's just endless, Broward. And, unless the people of Broward wake up and now they could get at least a fair election. There's a supervisor of elections just for 2020, but they'll put someone else in that's corrupt the people of Broward. As soon as 2020, they'll put another Brenda Snipes in. But that's Broward for you. And, in my speaking, when I go around the country, and I was never like this before. I had nothing against Democrats, Republicans, but just having dealt this dealings I've had with them in Broward, like how could anybody want Broward to spread into the rest of the country? It's like a cancer. That's how I explain it. And
that's liberalism.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like a cancer. Yeah. We always say that liberalism is a mental disorder. So
it is a mental disorder. Let me ask you
this: is it? Do you think it's that the Democrats are so ignorant to the actual solutions that seem like there's such common sense, and they just want to focus on the gun? Is it because they just want to, push forth their own agenda? Or do you think they just have no interest in solving the problem? It has to be one of the three to me. It can't, because it's pretty obvious.
The Democrats refuse to look at the real issues, what happened in Parkland. They're pushing gun control, and it wouldn't have made a difference. All their kids would have got killed the same way. The guy passed the background check. He bought whatever he wanted, never arrested. Why not look into what happened with his mental health? Why wasn't he committed when he tried killing himself all these times into the mental institution, where it could have been put on his background if they did a Baker Act to the full extent? Or when he trespassed at the school, why wasn't he arrested? When he carved swastikas into the tables, why wasn't he arrested? Why wasn't he arrested when he punched his mother's teeth out? Why would a sheriff's office allowed to go to his house 45 times without an arrest? So there's plenty of things. That's solutions. And he threatened people's lives. He threatened to rape people. He had the N-word on his backpack, hate crimes. Who were the Democrats? Who were they protecting by leaving people like this on the street without backgrounds? So background checks only work if you arrest or you commit people. So I don't know. Maybe you guys could help them figure it out. I don't have the patience for them.
Yeah.
I'm just want to talk to parents like you guys that could understand that you don't, not to put your kid in an environment like I did. And that's my message. My message is not to, I can't educate Democrats. I don't want to do it. My life's short. I don't have the patience for them. But people that want to know the truth, read my book, Why Meadow Died. It's all in there, right here. I don't have an agenda. You know what I mean? I'm not running for office. And my agenda is don't put your kid in a place like I did with my daughter.
Yeah, Andrew, we know you've got to leave. It's a little, we've kept you over a little bit, but we so appreciate everything you're doing, and God bless you and your family. And if we can get you back on the radio, I'd have you on every month. I mean, I just think this message is so powerful.
Just reach out.
And I can't tell you, there's a million things in this world that everybody worries about, right? You worry about money, you worry about your job, but there's nothing more important than our kids. Nothing. And your message is God bless you for everything you're doing. I'll if we could have you on our radio show every single week, I would do it. If there's anything we could sponsor, anything we can help you with, you please reach out to us, because we'll be there for you for sure.
Well, I appreciate it.
Don't hesitate to ask.
I tell all these parents, I go, listen, you drive your kid to the school bus. You drive your kid to the school. You are the ultimate decision maker of where you put your kids. So that's why the book's important. I call it even a manual for parents to see, because security is a smaller percentage to me to what they allow in the school. If they're going to let these kids in the school with emotionally disturbed and that could commit these crimes and be in the school next to your kid, it's your responsibility. Guys like Robert Runcie, the superintendent, they're not going to ever change, and there's no sense of talking to them. But parents, regardless of who they're voting for, they want the best for their kids. And the best for their kids is not to put them in an environment that I talk about in my book.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again very much, Andrew Pollack. And again, the book is Why Meadow Died. Pick this up. This is an absolute must-read as a parent, no doubt about it. A blueprint to really what happened and the most avoidable school shooting, mass shooting in U.S. history. Thank you very, very much for joining us, Andrew. Really appreciate it. All right, have a great day.
Andrew.
We'll see you tonight.
Guys, thanks.
For a replay of the interview, feel free to go to our website again at thefinancialguys.com. Again, thefinancialguys.com. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, follow anything on social media that we're doing. We're going to buy a bunch of these books, I know, and try to get them out to the school boards in our communities and to, we have actually a whole college planning department, so it would be a logical thing to get some of these in the hands of Jeff Boron to get to the parents that could potentially get them to school boards and things like that. And unfortunately, in places like New York and in California, I just don't get it. When they're taking, what would seem like common sense to me, like, if you've got 100 people in the school, the odds are you're going to have a handful of them that are willing to take, the course and to be the one that are the defenders of the children that they care so much about. The teachers, I was amazed when we did the show on Saturday how many teachers called and texted in on the text line to say that they're so frustrated because their hands are tied that they've got to deal with these kids day in and day out. It's just absolutely terrible. So.
This is, to me, I'm breaking this down into two different cylinders. One is, making sure that these kids that are absolute nut jobs, and there's no other way to say it, right? I know people could say, well, they're a young kid. I don't care. This kid said, when I'm 18, I'm going to buy a gun and I'm going to kill you. He had, the police at his house 45 times, yet he's still walking into the school district. That's number one. Number two is he's walking into the school district. I mean, how in the hell do we not have some kind of a levels of protection so that if and when a nut job does walk in, he doesn't make it very far? That's a shame.
All right, thanks again for watching, everybody. Thanks again for listening. If you're listening on the podcast, again, a big thank you to Andrew Pollack. Again, his book, Why Meadow Died, The People and Policies That Created the Parkland Shooter and Endanger America's Students. This, again, is a must-read. Please pick it up. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere books are sold. And, again, a big thank you to him for enlightening us on some of the failures in the school district. If you know, throughout the week, folks, again, we do manage money for a living. Go to our website. You can find everything we do there at thefinancialguys.com. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Investment advisory services offered through Independent Solutions Wealth Management and Blackridge Asset Management, LLC. Peak Broker Services, LLC is not an affiliate of Independent Solutions or Financial Guys, LLC.